Wow, this UCLA encampment, it folded like a cheap suit. I mean, for all the headgear and eye goggles and everything else, there wasn't much fight there. How about that? Okay. All right, we're monitoring it here throughout the morning on KCMO Talk Radio. Of course, there is also an encampment that's popped up, nothing like UCLA or Columbia, over at KU. And one of their adjunct professors now joins us. He also happens to be the mayor of Kansas City. He's Quinton Lucas. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. How are you?
Good morning. It is great to be with you on this kind of stormy day around town.
Absolutely. Hey, just with your KU ties, I just want to get your pulse on where you're at with KU now popping up with one of these encampments right now on campus.
You know, I have been honored to teach at KU now since 2012. I serve as a lecturer over there. No comment on their encampment. You know, I know and trust the Chancellor of the University of Kansas, Doug Girard, the KUPD, and others to handle it. But I'll give you my general thought on the protest. Both schools that I attended for other degrees, WashU and St. Louis and Cornell, have addressed them. I'm proud to be an alum of those institutions. I know at WashU they asked the local police departments and others to help them, I think, respect the rules that they have at Washington University. I stand by, I think, the work that was done both at WashU and at other places where there needs to be order to what is being done. I am someone who does believe, yeah, people have a right to protest, but at the same time, you don't have a right to pitch a tent anywhere or everywhere. You don't have a chance or a right to block people trying to go about their business in any normal day. And there are valid time, place, and manner restrictions. And I think what we are seeing on a lot of college campuses right now, not unlike what we saw in some spots in 2020, is a total disregard for that. And so I think many universities have asked folks to follow rules, and where they don't, unfortunately, I think law enforcement's had to step in, and I support those who have had to do the work to make sure that everyone has a right to enjoy their community and their space.
It's safe to say we won't see you at any of these encampments or protests anytime soon, if ever?
You will not. You will not. And actually, right before this call, I actually read about some of the demands, and they're pretty consistent around universities. And I read a story, to be fair, about the KU encampment, and it said a demand that the university divest all ties from any business doing business with the United States military. Like what? That's like everyone. Right, from food companies to everything under the sun. I mean, it's just a lot of this is just absolutely not realistic, and I respect the very challenging situation now. And what I would say with folks, yeah, it's great to have disagreements on any number of things. Somebody could call into your show and say, I disagree with America's foreign policy, and in fact, I think you have people who listen who do, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's Ukraine, Israel, what have you. I think that's a common sense discussion. This sort of thing of we should get rid of the military and we should, make sure there's no Boeing anymore, or all these other things that I'm kind of hearing bubble up, I think are frankly ridiculous. And then the other things that I think you end up seeing, one of the schools I attended, they said that the school should give up all of its land and return it to folks who once were on the land. And I mean, it's just, know the script. Be consistent with it. And I would frankly think that even if you're trying to adhere to a cause, right, talk just about that cause, not just an amalgamation of all things that you've ever disliked. So that's just me talking, but, nobody's asked me really but you. So thank you.
Well, but more broadly, and I want to get to a lot of the things happening in town real quick, but what does this say about some of these prestigious universities? You noted some of the big fancy degrees you have, which are very impressive. But what does it say about these places when this ideology is running rampant across these universities?
Well, I haven't had the chance to check in on your alma mater, Villanova, I believe, but it's an interesting time at all these schools. I actually gave a talk last Friday at Yale University on a kind of local government issue, and the interesting thing is I don't think it should color your view of the entire university. Walk by the encampment. It's a few dozen young people who are there, but that means there are thousands of others who are just going about their business. And maybe they care about this issue. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're just trying to graduate. Like I remember myself wanting to do it at this point in my college career. And so, to me, I think what we are seeing is a lot of the influence. I'm about to sound like an old guy, but I think everybody saw what was happening at Columbia, and then the rest of the Ivy League kind of said, let's do it too. And then it got over to USC, and now it's gotten to UMKC and KU. I mean, I just think it's wanting to be part of something And I don't know if it's necessarily wanting to truly, at least impactfully, change American foreign policy, but I think there is just this big, oh, wow, we're going to stand, I've heard it, right? We're going to stand in solidarity with Columbia University students. One might ask, why, right? If you're sitting in Kansas this morning and that sort of thing, Columbia's getting all the attention they need. I think it's just this interest in being part of something bigger, which is not unique in this moment of American life, but I think it's something that particularly happens with our young people, and a lot of them are gaggled together on college campuses.
Mayor Lucas is on KCMO. All the talk this week, the Chiefs, the Royals, Kansas, do they want to make a move with these star bonds? Well, you say, oh, man, that doesn't sound to me like a guy who's very nervous right now about this team going to the other side of the state line. Is that a fair assessment?
I'm not. I think there are many an exhausting chat, and sometimes on this show we get to talk about a lot of things. I mean, this has become such a soap opera, and I don't think the teams necessarily even want it to be a soap opera. After the election, they both said, we're all going to regroup, go on, do our thing. Clark Hunt had very short comments, but that was in response to an annual press avail that he has around the draft. Look, everybody's acting like there's something that will be done today, tomorrow, or anything under the sun. The teams are professionals. I think both at the states of Missouri and Kansas, you have professionals in leadership. And I think at the city of Kansas City, Missouri, you have professionals. I expect all of us to do the work necessary to make sure that we have solutions long term. I continue to believe that the best solution is for the Chiefs and the Royals to remain in Kansas City, Missouri. I think the Chiefs remaining at Arrowhead Stadium makes a lot of sense for others. Anyone, anywhere can throw out renderings. And I know your brothers and sisters in sports talk radio need something to talk about for 3 hours. I would think the Royals are interesting, but maybe they're not
bored.
enough.
They're bored.
Right. And so we all live in this cycle where, I know you're on social media like I am, where sometimes, and occasionally I feed the beast, but on Chiefs and Royals thing, I want to say, oh, God, make it stop, right? Like let's figure out all of this and instead, look at any of the number of other issues that are happening in our city, region, and world.
Okay, so then what does this look like? There are reports that the city, is negotiating with the Royals exclusively away from Jackson County. That would then maybe open up the county to work with the Chiefs. Where is your conversation at specifically with the Royals and trying to salvage what did not work out through the voter last month?
I'll share once again, as I've expressed before on this show, I think I share the disappointment of the Royals and perhaps the Chiefs. I think conversations have been frustrating with Jackson County. They're always welcome to come back. I did read news where the executive mentioned that he's waiting for the right time. I don't know what that time may be in his view, but nonetheless, Kansas City has never stopped talking to the teams. And so we will continue to visit with them. We will, however, do a few things that I think are respectful, which is, one, you largely negotiate with someone on fair terms, and what you don't do is blurt out every new statement to the media. I think we will make sure that any engagement, particularly as it talks about commitment of either public funds or other public resources, is a thorough public conversation. It's not just something that one day everybody's going to show up and say, how the heck did that happen? But at the same time, I think we'll continue to listen to the teams and what their issues are and what ours, and always have adherence to what's best for the people and the taxpayers of Kansas City and the state of Missouri. And so I think that's what will happen. What you will not see is an ordinance this Thursday that just says, oh my God, we'll appropriate $500 million for the Royals tomorrow because we're scared something somewhere will happen. We don't do a freak out approach to government. We never have. I don't think people want reactionaries in these positions. They want visionaries. And Kansas City will continue to work on a vision in collaboration with both teams on how we get things done.
With what the voter decided last month, does the state need to play a role to keep these teams here, in your estimation?
Look, I could cookie cut it and all that sort of stuff, but I think it is very clear that and this is just a tax-based conversation. Yeah. Kansas City, Missouri probably has sufficient tax base to help support construct, do any number of things for at least a facility. I think that part's probably clear. What becomes clear, however, is that, of course, there are two facilities we're talking about, one of which is owned by Jackson County. And in most other jurisdictions, the states particularly have applied a number of funds to help keep football teams. $800 million in New York State, Nevada about $700 million, $1.5 billion all told in the Tennessee deal, where the government of Tennessee had a lot to do with it. So I think it would be important for Missouri to be a big part of the Chiefs conversation. I do think that is more of a state conversation, particularly in the relationship with Jackson County and the Truman Sports Complex and Arrowhead Stadium. But the city is going to continue to play a vital role, either through using, of course, my very close relationships with all of our statewide leaders, but also doing whatever work necessary to make sure that we have funds and other ways to support the Chiefs remaining in Kansas City. And so I think, it does, as you've laid out, look at a probably strong Kansas City collaboration on baseball, a strong Missouri collaboration on football, but both entities being a part of both teams remaining.
Mayor Lucas on KCMO Talk Radio. Les, I want to ask you quickly about this. The Missouri Supreme Court tossing the KCPD funding election results from 2022, where basically the voter decided that the city had to fund KCPD to the tune of at least 25% instead of 20% of the budget. I know you guys are at the 25% mark anyway. I think you filed this lawsuit, right? So this will go back to the voter. How should they perceive this? What's the takeaway on your end on this ruling by the Missouri Supreme Court?
A few very quick steps. One, the state and statewide leaders need to follow the law. And in this situation, they did not. And so that's just clear as day. We wanted to make sure the law was followed. Two, I think it's the Missouri State Supreme Court saying that the voices of Kansas City, through its representatives and its voters, matter. That's clearly what they said. The state leaders tried to disregard it, and they ran into trouble at the Missouri Supreme Court. It is a transformative kind of groundbreaking decision, and I think that it speaks well for future efforts, perhaps, of the city of Kansas City to get more local voice and local control. And that would include, of course, ultimately local control of the Kansas City Police Department. I will say this, though, to some who may be concerned, as a guy who has voted to increase the Kansas City police budget almost every year I've been in office and city council in the Obama era, I would say that, we're going to continue to support our police. We're going to continue to adequately fund our police. I am heartened by the strong relationship the city has with the Kansas City Police Department. I'm proud of our high raises. I'm proud that there are officers who have been talking about staying around, that are signing back up, that are going to be part of these things, and that will continue. So I think it has no negative impact on policing. And as someone who believes that local voters and voices matter, I think it could only be good for the people of Kansas City and the Kansas City Police Department, ultimately public safety in Kansas City, that the Missouri Supreme Court said we actually matter.
All right. That is the mayor of Kansas City, Quinton Lucas, on KCMO Talk Radio. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Have a good week. We'll talk to you next week here on 95.7 FM. Thanks so much.
Take care, everybody.
All right. That's Quinton Lucas on KCMO.